My dears, gather round, because today we're pulling back the velvet curtains on a royal relocation that's less about moving boxes and more about a seismic clash of expectations, habits, and a rather stubborn sense of entitlement. We're talking, of course, about Prince Andrew, Duke of York, and his much-discussed, highly dramatic, and utterly fascinating transition from the sprawling grandeur of Royal Lodge to the comparatively modest confines of Marsh Farm. And let me tell you, the whispers from the palace corridors are absolutely frazzling. This wasn't just any old house move. Oh no. This was a saga, a true royal spectacle, brimming with bizarre demands and a level of specificity that left even the most seasoned royal staff scratching their heads. You see, Andrew had been biding his time, tucked away at Wood Farm on the Sandringham estate, ever since he reluctantly departed Royal Lodge. But Marsh Farm? Well, it wasn't quite ready for His Royal Highness, or rather, His former Royal Highness. A veritable checklist of prerequisites had to be met before he would even consider gracing the property with his presence. We're talking about a formidable security fence, towering and imposing, fresh landscaping to soothe his gaze, brand new carpets underfoot, and, naturally, a Sky television dish to ensure he wouldn't miss a moment of his favorite programs. Only once these meticulous preparations were complete, transforming the property to his exacting standards, did the wheels of relocation truly begin to turn. And when they did, it was anything but subtle. Picture this. Tuesday morning, 3 colossal removal vans from Gander and White, emblazoned with their distinguished crest, rolling up to Marsh Farm. Now, for those of you not intimately familiar with the crème de la crème of movers, Gander and White isn't your average man with a van service. Oh no, this is a company synonymous with handling priceless fine art, delicate antiques, and high-value treasures, possessing a coveted royal warrant that speaks volumes. Their presence immediately sparked a flurry of questions. What, precisely, did Andrew deem important enough to warrant such specialist attention? What precious cargo was being so carefully transported? Royal Lodge, his opulent residence for 2 glorious decades, was, as you can imagine, brimming with exquisite pieces. A significant portion of these works, as we know, fall under the purview of the Royal Collection Trust, the esteemed guardian of the monarchy's historic art and artifacts. Previous whispers, reported by the Venerable Times, had suggested that these particular items were expected to gracefully return to the trust's safekeeping after Andrew was, shall we say, relieved of his official titles and responsibilities. Yet, in a twist that only adds to the intrigue, it now appears that a number of these very same pieces have made the journey with him, finding a new, albeit temporary, home at Marsh Farm. Among the masterpieces believed to have adorned the walls of Royal Lodge was a truly captivating 19th-century portrait of Eugenie, Empress of the French, a stunning creation by the talented Charles Duard Boudabon. While we can't confirm with absolute certainty that this specific portrait was part of the convoy, the unmistakable presence of specialist art handlers absolutely screams that items of considerable significance were integral to this entire, elaborate relocation. And hey race where the drama truly escalates, my friends. Consider the sheer scale of the properties involved. Marsh Farm, his new abode, boasts a grand total of 5 bedrooms. 5. Royal Lodge, in stark, almost ludicrous contrast, was a sprawling 30-room residence. Imagine the psychological adjustment. According to an insider, whose revelations were splashed across the pages of the Mail, Andrew was, and I quote, appalled by the size of the new home and reluctant to move at all. Can you feel the tension? The alleged months he spent, tirelessly demanding a better property, a more fitting dwelling, speak volumes. The source went on to claim, with an air of knowing certainty, that he hadn't experienced living in such a diminutive space since his early days within the hallowed walls of Buckingham Palace itself, and that he would simply not cope well with this dramatic downsizing. This simmering tension, it seems, permeated every aspect of the moving process. Packing up Royal Lodge was, by all accounts, a monumental undertaking, not merely because of its gargantuan size, but because of the sheer volume of possessions that had accumulated over the 2 decades Andrew and Sarah Ferguson had called it home. Reports suggest a veritable mountain of belongings needed to be sorted, packed, and eventually transported. And for an extra sprinkle of logistical chaos, in the weeks leading up to the move, it was even whispered that an astonishing number of unopened Amazon deliveries had piled up inside the house, creating an additional, bewildering layer of complexity for the already frazzled staff. One can only imagine the sighs and eye rolls behind closed doors. But let's delve into the more personal details, the charmingly peculiar habits that truly etch themselves into the public's memory. His legendary teddy bear collection, for instance. Ah, yes, the bears. According to Charlotte Briggs, a former staff member who once navigated the intricate world of Andrew's domestic arrangements, there were no fewer than 72 of these cuddly companions. And hey, race the kicker. They had to be arranged in a very precise order on his bed. She recounted to the Sun the astonishing fact that she underwent an entire day of dedicated training solely to master the art of their correct placement, emphasizing that everything had to be exactly right. Can you believe it? A full day. And it seems that this particular routine, a cornerstone of his comfort, hasn't entirely vanished. While most of the furry brigade has reportedly been dispatched to storage at a gardening store, a rather ignominious fate for such esteemed companions, he is said to have retained one special friend, a cuddly monkey. A single, beloved monkey, accompanying him to Marsh Farm. It's a small, telling detail, suggesting that even amidst the stark reality of downsizing, some of these deeply ingrained habits, these peculiar comforts, continue to endure. Staffing, my dears, is another arena where friction appears to be bubbling just beneath the surface. Andrew, it has been widely reported, is less than thrilled with the level of support now available to him at Marsh Farm. King Charles, in a gesture that seems eminently reasonable, is said to have offered access to a cleaner, a groundsman, and a cook on an occasional basis. A perfectly practical arrangement, one might think, for a 5-bedroom property. However, according to those in the know, this new reality has not been met with enthusiasm. The expectation, it appears, has simply not adjusted to match the new circumstances. It's a classic case of old habits dying hard. If at all, this current dissatisfaction, of course, isn't an isolated incident. It aligns perfectly with a consistent narrative that has emerged over many years, painted across numerous accounts. In Andrew Loney's incisive book, entitled The Rise and Fall of the House of York, former staff members vividly describe a working environment where Andrew demanded nothing less than strict obedience and an almost military level of formality. Colin Burgess, a former equerry, recalled, with a distinct sense of unease, that Andrew would address his staff in a manner befitting an officer speaking to his subordinates, often issuing brusque, direct instructions such as, "I want this done, and I want it done now." Imagine the atmosphere. And then there are the claims, persistent and intriguing, that he continued to expect the use of royal titles within his household, even after having been officially stripped of them. According to a report penned by Rob Shooter, a source close to the situation claimed that within the hallowed halls of Royal Lodge, absolutely nothing had changed. Staff, it was alleged, continued to address him as Your Royal Highness, maintaining the traditional bows and curtsies, as if the seismic shifts in his public standing had simply not occurred. While the precise accuracy of such claims is, as ever, difficult to definitively confirm, similar stories have a remarkable way of resurfacing, time and time again, adding layers to the portrait of a man clinging to the vestiges of his former life. Other reported incidents, seemingly minor yet profoundly illustrative, paint a strikingly consistent picture. It has been alleged, for instance, that staff were routinely required to open curtains for him each morning, even when he was lying mere inches away, perfectly capable of performing the task himself. Another rather astonishing claim suggests he once summoned a television technician to his home late at night, not for a technical fault, but to patiently explain the intricate workings of a remote control. These might seem like trivial anecdotes, but collectively, they forge a powerful and consistent image of a man accustomed to and expecting a very particular, almost theatrical, level of personal service. But wait, there's more. Some accounts venture into even more uncomfortable territory. According to royal expert Tom Quinn, one unfortunate member of staff was allegedly removed from their position because Andrew took exception to a mole on their face. Another, equally baffling dismissal, was reportedly for the cardinal sin of wearing a nylon tie. These are the kinds of stories that make you gasp. In the candid pages of the book Yes, Ma'am, The Secret Life of Royal Servants, former employees didn't mince words, describing him as bossy and suggesting he could, at times, behave like a classic school bully. These, of course, are allegations, but their persistent repetition over the years has woven them firmly into the broader, often unflattering, narrative surrounding the Duke of York. And just when you might think this entire saga is simply about the trials and tribulations of downsizing and the perennial tensions between employer and employee, another crucial detail resurfaces, adding a very different, and perhaps more poignant, layer to what has been left behind at Royal Lodge. Because, my dears, not everything has followed Andrew to Marsh Farm. Indeed, as a direct consequence of his departure from his longtime residence, many items intrinsically linked to the Royal Collection Trust are now believed to have remained firmly within the Trust's control. A spokesperson, ever so discreetly, declined to comment on specific pieces or their precise locations, stating only that they do not confirm where items are kept when they are not on public display. So, while some cherished personal belongings were meticulously transported under the watchful eyes of specialist supervisors, others, it seems, have been quietly, almost imperceptibly, returned to the vast, sprawling embrace of the wider royal collection. And that, my friends, is where the true heart of this story lies. That stark, almost poetic contrast really encapsulates this entire, turbulent move. On one hand, we witness the Herculean efforts to maintain a certain standard of personal comfort, to safeguard cherished possessions, and to cling to familiar routines. On the other, we see the undeniable, increasingly stringent limits now being imposed, whether in terms of physical space, the availability of staff, or access to the priceless assets of the monarchy itself. As Prince Andrew, Duke of York, settles into his new, decidedly less grand, life at Marsh Farm, a pressing question hangs in the air, echoing through the halls of public opinion. Can these two profoundly different realities truly coexist? Can someone with such deeply entrenched habits, such specific expectations, genuinely adapt to a much smaller, more restricted environment? Or will these enduring demands continue to cause friction, whispers, and outright drama behind the scenes, long after the last removal bin has departed? Let me know what you think, my dears. Do you see this as a genuine turning point, a moment of forced adaptation that might, just might, lead to a new chapter? Or is it simply the same familiar patterns, the same royal drama, playing out in a slightly different, smaller setting? And if you're as captivated by these tales of palace intrigue as I am, make sure you subscribe, hit that notification bell, so you don't miss a single, juicy update on what comes next in this endlessly fascinating royal saga.